Hey guys, tonight we begin at sea. Not the shimmering kind painted on postcards, but a churning, salt-soaked expanse where you're more likely to die than tan. We're diving into the world of medieval naval warfare, a place of damp misery, rot, and the kind of screaming that never makes it into history books. There are no rum-soaked pirates, no gallant captains with flowing cloaks, no swashbuckling swordplay under the stars. What you're about to board is not a ship of dreams. It's a floating plank of nightmares with just enough rope to hang your hopes on. So, before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You've been recruited, or more likely, conscripted, into a medieval naval force. Volunteering in this era usually means a spear at your back and a firm suggestion from someone with authority issues and bad teeth. You don't know where you're going, only that it's far, dangerous, and very wet. No one asks if you can swim. Spoiler, it doesn't matter. Swimming won't save you from fire arrows, infected wounds, or the crushing weight of chainmail when you inevitably fall in. The only skill that matters now is obedience, and even that won't keep you dry. The ship you're boarding is made of timber, tar, and wishful thinking. It creaks like a dying tree, rocks like a drunk monk, and smells like moldy ale mixed with despair. There's no below-deck luxury suite. There's barely a below deck. You sleep on the same planks that rats urinate on, next to men who haven't bathed since last harvest and have emotional intimacy with their boots. Everything is damp, permanently. The kind of wet that gets into your soul and invites fungus to settle down and start a family. And food? Oh, you'll eat. Eventually, mostly hardtack, which is less of a meal and more of a chewing contest with a brick. Sometimes salted meat. No one knows what animal it came from, or when. There's ale, but it's warm, weak, and full of floaty things you don't ask questions about. Water is rare and risky. It's technically the ocean, but ironically, it's the last place you'll find clean drinking water. You'll be lucky if you last 3 days without vomiting or hallucinating. That's not seasickness. That's your body filing an official complaint. Your crewmates are not heroic sailors. They're thieves, farmers turned fighters, criminals given a choice between the gallows or the galley, and a few wide-eyed fools who thought naval glory sounded noble. No one is smiling. Everyone smells like mildew and mild regret. There are no hammocks, no seagulls, no quiet moments of reflection. Just the slap of waves, the clatter of weapons, and the occasional cough that might be nothing, or plague. You'll learn quickly that silence on a ship is never peaceful. It's usually the moment before the screaming starts. Soon, you'll hear the captain bark orders. His voice is gravel-soaked in vinegar, and he's already missing several fingers from a previous engagement that went sideways and involved too many axes. He doesn't know your name, and he won't learn it. Your cargo with limbs, one more disposable body for the next boarding attempt, one more target for an arrow with bad aim. The ship sets sail not with ceremony, but with groans. Wood groaning, men groaning, your stomach groaning at what you've gotten yourself into. So get comfortable, or don't. There is no comfort here. Let the hum of modern life fade as we pull away from the shore of reason. Drift with us now, not toward adventure, but toward a slow, salt-burned unraveling. You're going to see, you're going to battle, and you're going to regret every soggy, splintering second of it. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1290 and somehow you're on a ship, a real medieval cog, bobbing stupidly on a gray-blue sea like a drunk trying to stand still. Your head aches. Your back is on fire. And the first thing you notice is the smell, a glorious medley of wet rope, rotting fish guts, mildew, unwashed humans, and something you pray is just old seaweed. But deep down in the rancid corners of your soul, you know it's probably not. There's also a sharp tang of urine baked into the wood, because apparently the concept of designated toilet space hasn't made it this far into nautical history. You blink against the morning sun slicing through the torn canvas overhead, and your eyes adjust to your surroundings. The deck is slick with sea spray and possibly vomit. Planks warped from age and salt twist under your weight with every sway of the ship. You're lying on a pile of sacks filled with grain, or maybe cannonballs, or possibly just sacks pretending to be useful. There's no mattress, no pillow, just whatever piece of cargo wasn't already claimed by rats or someone more awake than you. And yes, rats are everywhere. They scamper across the ropes, along the rigging, even over your feet without apology. They've claimed this ship generations ago. You're the new tenant. The sea is calm this morning. That's the last nice thing you'll hear today. Around you, men grunt, snore, cough, spit, and curse in accents you barely recognize. One of them scratches at his chest like he's searching for buried treasure in his own shirt. Another is already arguing with the wind about something it did to his mother. Welcome to your crew. There are no uniforms, no team spirit, just a collection of rough faces, half-toothed sneers, and the kind of hygiene you normally associate with livestock pens. Everyone looks sunburned, windburned, and emotionally burnt out. There's a man near the mast sharpening a blade with a stone that looks older than common sense. The sound is like a whisper from death himself. A boy, no older than 12, carries a bucket of something brown and steaming to the side of the ship and dumps it overboard. You don't ask what it was. You're starting to understand that questions only lead to darker answers out here. A thick rope smacks the deck beside you, nearly taking your ear with it, and someone yells a word you don't understand. It's probably important. It might have been your name. But you're still trying to come to terms with the fact that the ship itself appears to be made entirely of splinters. You try to sit up. Bad idea. Your spine protests like it's been tied in knots. Your stomach lurches with the movement of the waves, and your head is still pounding from either last night's ale or the fact that sleep happens in shifts and someone yelled in their dreams. There are no clocks, no alarms, just the constant movement of the sea and the occasional bell clang that tells you when to do something, though it rarely explains what. You'll figure it out. Or someone will hit you until you do. The sails above you flap like giant wet rags. They're patched, stained, and drooping like they've given up on ambition. The rigging creaks with every gust of wind, and you realize just how much of this ship depends on ropes that were probably made by someone who gave up halfway through the job. Every knot looks like it was tied in anger. Nothing feels secure. Not the mast, not the railing, and certainly not your life expectancy. You're wearing a tunic that hasn't been washed since someone's grandfather fought in a land war. It's damp in places you don't want to think about and covered in patches that aren't decorative. You don't have shoes. Your feet are slick with seawater and filth, and your toenails already feel like they're preparing to leave your body in protest. You scratch your ankle. Something scratches back, and then someone shouts. Loud, guttural, full of urgency and menace. It could mean, brace the sail, or enemy sighted, or dinner's ready. It doesn't matter. Everyone moves at once. You stand because they do. You copy what they're doing because your brain hasn't caught up with your reality yet, and the only thing worse than doing something wrong is doing nothing at all. You're on a ship now, a medieval one, with no compass, no comfort, no clean water, and absolutely no guarantee that you'll see land again. The wind picks up, the horizon yawns wide and endless. Somewhere out there, another ship is waiting. And you're just hoping you survive long enough to regret this. The ship creaks with every wave, like it's groaning under the weight of its own bad decisions. You'd think it was built centuries ago by a committee of half-blind carpenters and a very optimistic goat. Technically, it's called a cog, a marvel of 13th century engineering. If you use the word marvel to describe anything that leaks constantly, lists to one side, and has a mast held together by rope, tar, and hope. It's roughly the size of a modern bus, and about as graceful as a cow on stilts. The hull is made of overlapping planks sealed with pitch, which sounds impressive until you realize pitch smells like hot death and melts in the sun, dripping down the sides of the ship like the ship itself is bleeding. You try to walk across the deck, but the boards buckle beneath your feet like they're actively trying to betray you. Every step is a gamble. You could slip on seawater, or on something less identifiable, like last night's fish stew or this morning's vomit. Splinters wait patiently in every corner, like tiny wooden assassins. The railing is waist-high and about as sturdy as a stack of rotten bread. There's nothing between you and the ocean but poor craftsmanship and a prayer no one's thought to say yet. The ropes are slick with brine and grime. The sails are patched with cloth that looks suspiciously like someone's old underwear. And everything is damp. Not wet. Damp. The kind of damp that seeps into your bones and makes your skin feel like it's fermenting. There's no such thing as a private room. Forget hammocks, cabins, or anything that even remotely resembles shelter. You sleep wherever there's space, usually on the lower deck, which is just a glorified crawl space packed with cargo, rats, and men snoring loud enough to summon sea monsters. The ceiling is so low, you have to fold yourself like a dying crab just to lie down. If you're lucky, you'll find a corner that isn't already claimed by someone's lice-infested cloak or a puddle of something leaking from the crates above. The air down here is thick, not with oxygen. No, that would be generous. It's thick with sweat, mold, and the distinct aroma of feet that haven't seen sunlight since last harvest. Breathing is less about taking in air and more about tolerating the stench of other people existing. Your cabin is a damp coffin. If you're lucky, it floats. Above deck, the wind never stops, and neither does the cold. Below deck, the heat ferments into a kind of human soup. Every crevice of this ship is either too hot, too cold, too loud, or too full of rats. The rats, by the way, are the only ones who seem to enjoy themselves. They travel in little rodent families, chew through everything, and occasionally gnaw on your boot while you're still wearing it. At night, they play games in the rigging and drop surprises onto your face. You once saw one drag away a chunk of hardtack bigger than its body. It looked proud. You felt afraid. And then there's the latrine, which is generous considering it's just a hole in a plank dangling over the sea. There's no privacy, no walls. Just a rope to cling to, your bare backside hanging over the waves, and a level of vulnerability you didn't know you could reach. The wind howls, the ship sways, and you pray you don't fall in mid-process. Some do. It's not spoken of. Others miss entirely. That's worse. There's no fresh water to wash up, no soap. No one bothers pretending to care anymore. Hygiene is a memory, and dignity went overboard a long time ago. Everything on this ship is loud, filthy, unstable, and designed by people who clearly hated comfort. You used to think ships were noble things, sleek, strong, powerful. Now you realize the truth. This ship doesn't carry you. It tolerates you, barely. Every creak is a complaint. Every gust of wind is a threat. and every day it stays afloat, is a miracle held together by tar, curses, and the collective willpower of men who've already accepted that the sea might kill them tomorrow, and the ship would gladly help it do so. You finally spot him when the sun breaks through the clouds, squinting, scowling, and already shouting at someone unfortunate enough to be standing still. He doesn't look like a hero. He looks like someone who lost a bar fight, then sued the bar for existing. This is your captain, your commander, the man in charge of your safety, your orders, your discipline, and if necessary, your punishment. He has one eye, 3 teeth, and controls your fate with a splintery club. His name might be something like Garth or Wulfric or maybe just Captain, said with the tone you'd use for a thunderstorm or a drunken bear. He walks with a limp that sounds permanent and proud, his left knee clicking like a rusty hinge every time he stomps across the deck. His coat is stiff with salt and stained with a mysterious dark red that everyone has collectively decided not to ask about. Around his neck is a cord with a whistle, a key, and what looks suspiciously like someone else's tooth. The whistle is rarely used. His voice is louder. There's no uniform. Rank isn't indicated by color or stripe or ceremonial sash. You know who's in charge because he's the only one who doesn't work, doesn't smile, and doesn't care if you live through the week. His authority comes not from title, but from force. He's survived more battles than he can remember and lost more friends than he can name, mostly because they weren't friends, just warm bodies who didn't duck fast enough. His weapon of choice is a club fashioned from the mast of a smaller, less fortunate ship. It's wrapped in iron bands and speaks more fluently than he does. The chain of command beneath him is less a chain and more a snarl of knots. There's a first mate who translates the captain's screams into slightly less violent screams. Then there's a boatswain who manages the sails, ropes, and rigging with the energy of a furious spider. After that, the hierarchy becomes unclear. There are gunners who aren't sure if they're in charge of the weapons or just cleaning them, cooks who sometimes outrank you depending on the mood, and a carpenter who appears to run a shadow government based entirely on who owes him nails. You don't know who to salute, because no one salutes. You don't even know who to ask. Questions are dangerous here. Curiosity gets mistaken for dissent, and dissent gets dealt with in a way that ends with someone going overboard and everyone pretending it was an accident. The captain doesn't explain orders. He points, growls, and occasionally throws things. Sometimes he issues commands in Latin, which he doesn't speak, or shouts naval terms no one understands. You once heard him tell a man to reef the bilge. That's not a thing. The man still did something, and it was probably wrong. That's the trick of medieval naval leadership. Confidence over competence. Authority doesn't require sense, just volume and the ability to swing a weapon without crying. Mistakes don't get corrected. They get punished. If you tie the wrong knot, you get slapped. If you fall asleep on watch, you get flogged. If you question the captain, you get silence. Then punishment. Then silence again. He eats better than everyone else. Sleeps under a stitched-together canopy that leaks less than yours. Has a private stash of actual wine and what might be soap. Rumor has it he once slept in a real bed, back when he was a nobleman's bastard, or a disgraced knight, or possibly just the last survivor of a mutiny that he caused and then forgot about. No one knows his origin story. No one asks. You don't look into the past of a man who sharpens his fingernails and calls it grooming. But despite it all, despite the madness and the threats and the violence, but you follow him. Because he gets results. He gets the ship through storms. He keeps the crew afraid enough to function. He makes enemies nervous, allies cautious, and your gods very, very busy. And when a battle comes, and it will come, you'll want him at the front, roaring curses into the wind like a man who plans to kill death itself. He may be cruel, he may be broken, but he's the only thing between you and oblivion. And he's holding that club like it's thinking about you next. You were hoping, maybe foolishly, that life at sea would come with at least a sliver of camaraderie, some brotherhood of the brine, laughing together by the firelight, sharing stories, maybe singing a song or two while scrubbing the deck. That hope lasted about 4 minutes. Long enough for your bunkmate to steal your blanket, cough blood onto your boots, and mumble something about demons in the rigging. You haven't made eye contact since. The crew is a living warning sign. They're not sailors, so much as a collection of poor decisions held together by spite and scabs. Most are conscripts, peasants dragged from their fields and promised coin or redemption, depending on whether they were farmers or felons when they signed up. Or, more likely, they didn't sign anything. Just got shoved onto the ship with a weapon and a shrug. Some are ex-soldiers with haunted eyes and bad tempers, and others are criminals looking for one more crime to commit before the sea claims them. And then there's you, naive, still hoping for some kind of moral code among thieves. That illusion ends the moment someone tries to trade you a rat carcass for your only dry sock. Your shipmates reek of sweat, fish oil, sour ale, and a general lack of boundaries. There's one man whose beard seems to be growing mold, another with a twitchy eye and a tendency to giggle at nothing, and a third who has not spoken a single word since you boarded, but sharpens his knife every morning while staring at you like he's naming bones. They all have lice. Everyone does. The lice are part of the crew now. They have their own hierarchy, their own grudges. You scratch your scalp and wonder if you'll ever feel clean again. The man to your left snores like a drowning bear and hoards dried fish under his tunic. You know this because you watched him pull one out during a storm and eat it with the glee of a man who's given up on everything except chewing. The man to your right once told a story about how he bit someone's ear off in a tavern brawl and keeps asking if you'd like to see the scar. You keep saying no. He keeps offering. There's no sense of teamwork, no unity, just shared suffering and occasional alliances, forged by necessity and dissolved the moment someone drops a coin. You don't trust anyone, and you shouldn't. Every meal you guard like it's treasure. Every possession you sleep on or tie to your body. You've already lost a belt, a spoon, and possibly a prayer book that wasn't even yours. Someone steals your bread. You suspect everyone, including the rats. Arguments break out daily. Over hammocks, over water rations, over insults, real or imagined. The punishment for fighting is usually more work, or a flogging, or nothing, depending on the captain's mood and whether he saw it happen. Blood on the deck is cleaned with seawater and silence. No one asks who started it. No one ever finishes it. There are men here who have killed. You can feel it. They carry the weight of it without shame, like it's just another skill they picked up along the way, like rope tying or knife sharpening. One man laughs in his sleep, not soft chuckles, full-throated cackles like something dark is tickling his brain. Another sings lullabies to himself while rocking back and forth, always off-key, always at night. If someone falls overboard, there is no alarm, no rescue plan. Just a quick pause to see if they resurface, and then it's back to the job. There are no goodbyes, just the slap of the sea and a vague note to maybe redistribute his boots if they float back. You start to understand that death isn't something feared here. It's expected, accepted. Just another wave waiting its turn. The sea isn't your enemy. The ship isn't your enemy. The enemy is standing beside you, smiling with too many teeth and hiding a blade in his boot. You sleep with one eye open. You eat quickly. You don't speak unless you must. There is no brotherhood here. Only bodies. Only names you might remember. right up until one of them decides he wants your blanket more than he wants your friendship. The sun is barely up, the deck is slick with seawater and yesterday's sins, and you're already being handed what they call breakfast. It arrives in a cracked wooden bowl that may have once held something decent, but now exists solely to disappoint you. Inside is a hunk of hardtack, a kind of medieval cracker made of flour, salt, and spite, paired with something that might generously be described as meat. It's gray, it's damp, it smells faintly of the sea, and overwhelmingly of despair. There are maggots crawling in it. No one cares. In fact, the older crewmate beside you flicks them off like they're seasoning and eats faster. You take a bite of the hardtack and immediately regret all your life choices. It doesn't yield so much as threaten your molars. It's a dry, jaw-breaking slab with the density of a brick and the emotional warmth of one too. You try to chew, but your teeth bounce off the surface like it's testing your will to survive. The edges are sharp enough to cut your gums, and as you gnaw desperately, you begin to wonder whether it's actually just a cleverly disguised piece of ballast. Your teeth break before your spirit does. Barely. Then comes the meat, or what's pretending to be. It was salted weeks ago, maybe months. The salt is crusted over the surface, in thick, uneven patches like it tried to preserve the meat, and then gave up halfway through. You're not sure what animal it came from. No one is. It's chewy, sinewy, and tastes like a piece of rope someone dragged through an old boot. There's no tenderness, just salt, regret, and the quiet certainty that you'll be tasting this same exact thing at every meal until either you die or the barrels run out. Then it gets worse. For hydration, they hand you a cup of beer. Don't get excited. This is not the frothy golden lager of your modern imagination. This is ship beer, also known as flat, warm, vaguely sour liquid that barely qualifies as alcohol and only exists because water is more likely to kill you. It's weak on flavor, weaker on effect, and teeming with floaters, bits of grain, mold, and possibly a breadcrumb from 3 voyages ago. But you drink it anyway, because it's either that or the seawater, and the seawater has already claimed 3 crewmen and the captain's last pair of clean socks. You eat standing up, because there are no chairs. There are barely even bowls. Some men cradle their food in whatever container they can find. Helmets, boots, hands. You glance down and realize someone has dropped a piece of meat onto the deck and picked it up without hesitation. He blows on it like that's going to fix anything. It doesn't. He eats it anyway. You try not to stare, or vomit, or cry. You fail at 2 of the 3. After the meal, your stomach churns in confusion. It's not quite full, not quite empty. It's alert, suspicious, bracing itself. Within hours, someone near you will double over, clutching their belly, and disappear behind the mast to deal with the consequences. There are no clean latrines, just a plank with a hole in a rope and a long, humiliating drop. You will never poop normally again. Not here. Not after this. There's no schedule to meals. Just whenever the cook decides it's time, or more accurately, whenever he feels like emptying the barrels. There's no variety, no joy, and no hope of anything fresh, unless a bird flies into the mast and dies on impact. The only things that change are the number of rats and the color of your meat. Some days, it's slightly redder. Other days, more green. You learn not to comment on it. You learn to chew with determination and swallow with a prayer. And yet, somehow, the others seem unfazed. They eat quickly, carelessly, like taste is a luxury they abandoned years ago. You're still mourning your dignity. They're just trying to make sure no one steals their biscuit while they blink. That's what food is out here. Not nourishment, not pleasure, but fuel for more suffering. You'll eat this again at midday, and again at dusk, and again until your taste buds revolt or your teeth give out, whichever happens first. Probably the teeth. You've now spent 5 days on board, and you've started to notice a shift, not in the ship, which still rocks with the grace of a dying ox, but in your own scent. You don't smell like a person anymore. You smell like fear, fish oil, mildew, and whatever happens when too many unwashed bodies share one floating wooden box with no ventilation and even less shame. It's a scent that clings to everything. Your clothes, your hair, your dignity, and no matter where you go on this ship, it follows. Or rather, it leads. People can smell you coming before you arrive, and they don't flinch anymore. That's how far gone things are. You're not the exception. You're the standard. Bathing isn't just rare here. It's considered suspicious. The very idea of washing your body is treated the way we might treat someone licking public doorknobs, with revulsion, with fear, with the uncomfortable feeling that they're probably cursed. You tried once to rinse your hands in a barrel of rainwater. The cook slapped you with a spoon and told you it was for stew. It wasn't clear whether he meant the water or your hands. You haven't asked since. The ocean is right there, endless, restless, blue-gray, and slapping against the hull as if taunting you. But using it to clean yourself is not an option. First of all, getting overboard safely requires gymnastic ability no one on this vessel possesses. Second, if you fall in, there's a fair chance you won't come back up. And third, salt water doesn't cleanse. It exfoliates your will to live. It scrapes your skin raw, dries out your lips, and leaves your hair feeling like it's been smoked over a campfire. You'll come out of it not refreshed, but pickled. Your clothes, soaked in layers of sweat, fish brine, and accidental soup, now possess a texture that can only be described as crusted. They don't fold anymore. They crack. You peel them off at night and hear the sound of fabric begging for release. Underneath, your skin is a battlefield. Rashes bloom like medieval flowers. Mysterious bumps come and go, like migrating birds. And every inch of you itches with the passion of a cursed orchard. You scratch constantly. Everyone does. It's the only common language on this ship. Hair isn't washed, it's scraped. Your scalp is a graveyard of dried sweat, sea salt, and possibly something that hatched overnight. Some men have started shaving their heads with dull blades just to stop feeling things crawling in the night. Others embrace the wildness. One man has tied small bones into his beard and claims they keep away evil. They don't. But they do keep people from sitting near him, so maybe that's enough. The smell of the ship is legendary. It hits you in waves, like the ocean, but meaner. It's a mix of rot, wet rope, old beer, and something beneath it all that smells like meat left in the sun too long and now thinks it's cheese. The captain doesn't notice it, or maybe he just doesn't care. His coat is stiff with years of dried sweat and possibly blood, and he hasn't removed it once since you boarded. You've started to think it's part of him now, fused to his being like barnacles on a rock. The cook smells like smoke and spoiled fish. The carpenter smells like mold and whatever trees regret. Everyone else smells like exhaustion and forgotten dreams. There's no laundry system, no soap, no privacy. If you want to rinse anything, you'll need to pray for rain and hope no one else gets there first. Even then, you're just rubbing wet fabric against wet skin and calling it progress. One man tried to wash his shirt with sand. It disintegrated. He cheered like he'd defeated a monster. At some point, your senses give up. You stop noticing. The stench becomes part of you, like your shadow or your bad knee. You become a walking relic, a shrine to bacteria and resilience. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Cleanliness is a luxury for people on land, Out here, survival doesn't smell nice. You are wearing clothing, in the loosest possible sense of the word. Pieces of fabric cling to you in patches, warped and stiff from repeated soakings in seawater, sweat, and whatever unholy stew seeps out of the deck during the night. They were once made of wool and leather, materials that, in theory, keep a body warm and dry. But now, after days, or is it weeks, at sea, they've become something else entirely. Something alive. Your clothes are no longer garments. They are environments. Damp, dark, fungal ecosystems. A rainforest for mildew and microbes that whisper softly against your skin, reminding you they've claimed this territory now. You wake up each morning to new textures. The back of your tunic feels sticky. Your boots are blooming. There's a colony of something fuzzy near your armpit that wasn't there yesterday. Your leggings, once brown, are now streaked with green and gray, like moss has begun to express itself artistically. You try to shake them out, but they stick, heavy with absorbed sea mist and old sweat. Everything smells like rot. Not fresh rot. The kind of rot that's committed. Deep rot. Religious rot. Nothing dries. That's the real horror. The wind is constant, the sun appears often enough, but the damp never leaves. It clings. Your clothes dry only long enough to give you false hope before the next wave splashes over the rail, or the next storm rolls in, or the air itself decides to turn into soup. And when wool stays wet for too long, it doesn't soften. It sours. It takes on a smell that lodges in your sinuses and convinces you that you've wronged some ancient god of hygiene. Leather, once supple, becomes stiff and cracked. It pinches and rubs until your skin blisters. Then it softens just enough to absorb your blood. You're always chafing, under the arms, behind the knees, between the thighs. Every step you take feels like sandpaper being dragged across a sunburn. You can't walk without wincing. You can't sit without squirming. And yet, there's nowhere to strip, nowhere to change, nowhere to even air yourself out in private. The ship is a floating fish barrel filled with men pretending not to see each other's suffering. You tried once to peel off your shirt and dry it in the breeze. The wind took it. The crew laughed. You considered following it into the sea. You are technically clothed. You are emotionally naked. The seams of your garments have turned traitor. Threads unravel with every movement. Buttons, if you had any, are long gone. Laces snap. Your belt is a length of rope that smells faintly of eel. The holes in your socks have become windows. Your cloak is so stiff with salt that it stands up on its own. When you sleep, it folds around you like a wet tortilla and presses your dampness back into your skin. You can feel things growing, not metaphorically, literally, under your collar, between your toes, in the folds behind your knees. You scratch until you bleed, then scratch some more. The itching never stops. One man claimed he grew mushrooms in his boot. He was probably lying. But when you saw the shape of what he pulled out, you weren't so sure. Everyone stinks. That helps, in a way. No one can smell anyone else's personal misery because the collective miasma has become a shield. But it doesn't change the fact that your clothing is failing, not just in function, but in spirit. You used to dress with purpose. Now you wrap yourself in whatever's less wet, less moldy, and least likely to cause a rash. That's the bar. Not comfort. Not dignity. Just damage control. When you came aboard, your clothes were part of your identity. Now they are camouflage, rotting armor, a second skin that reminds you every hour of how far you've fallen from civilization. And when you finally get off this ship, if you get off, you'll burn them. Not as a ritual, not as closure, but because by then, they'll probably try to crawl off you first. You thought the sea would be the thing that killed you, the water, the waves, the drowning. But the sea, cruel as it is at least consistent. The sky is not. The sky is fickle and violent, and deeply personal in its hatred of you. It changes moods without warning, punishes without reason, and offers no shelter. It is the true captain of this voyage, and it wants you to suffer. The morning starts with sun, not the gentle kind that kisses your cheeks and reminds you of meadows and mothers, but the kind that burns your skin through damp wool, turns the deck into a skillet, and boils the sweat off your back before you can blink. There is no shade, there is no sunscreen. You've tried draping cloth over your head, but it just traps the heat and cooks your thoughts. Your lips crack, your eyes sting. The salt clings to your skin like a second crust, and you begin to understand why some men just stop working and stare blankly at the horizon. It's not awe, it's surrender. Then the wind picks up. First a breeze, then a slap, then a shriek. The sails snap taut like the ships being punched from above, and suddenly, all that blistering sun is gone, replaced by clouds so dark they look like they've been smoking behind your back. The crew moves fast now. Everyone does. You scramble with ropes, duck under beams, and pretend to know what you're doing. You do not. No one cares. The sky has changed its mind again, and now it wants to watch things break. Rain comes sideways. It stings like thrown gravel and finds its way into your ears, your eyes, your open mouth. You are drenched in seconds, though you were never exactly dry to begin with. Your clothes sag with water. Your boots squelch. The deck tilts violently, throwing men against railings, barrels, and each other. You cling to a rope and try not to think about the fact that this very rope nearly hanged someone last week when it snapped loose and caught him mid-fall. The wind howls louder than the crew, louder than the captain, louder than God. And then comes the wave. It doesn't look like a wave at first. It looks like the sky is rising from the sea, a dark wall towering above the ship. You barely have time to scream before it hits. Water slams into the deck like a punishment. The world goes blue, then black, then noise. You're underwater before you realize you were even above it. You flail, choke, surface, and cough up something that tastes like brine and old rope. You wipe your eyes and see a man get swept off the side. No one shouts his name. No one looks twice. You think the worst is over, but the storm has other plans. Lightning forks across the sky like it's trying to find you specifically. Thunder shakes the air in your lungs. You start whispering prayers you haven't said in years. You offer promises you can't keep. You now worship the sky. It does not love you back. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. Time is a meaningless smear of wind and panic. When the storm finally drags itself off in search of new victims, what remains of the crew is soaked, bruised, and eerily quiet. The sun returns as if nothing happened. The heat bakes the ship dry again, leaving behind salt crystals and the stink of fear. That night, the cold settles in, a damp, sneaking chill that wraps around your bones and reminds you that the sky has more than one weapon. You huddle in your cloak, still wet at the seams, and listen to the wood creak. It could rain again. It could snow. It could throw fire or hail or something worse. The sky is watching, always, and it's never in a good mood. It begins slowly. A gentle rock, a shift beneath your feet that feels almost manageable, like the earth is breathing under you. Then it tilts again, then again. And then the realization lands hard in your gut. The ship isn't rocking like a cradle. It's lurching like a dying animal. Something in your stomach turns over, tightens, and decides it would rather evacuate than negotiate. Welcome to your first true taste of medieval seafaring. You crouch near the rail, gripping splintered wood with white knuckles, staring at the heaving gray water below. Your mouth is dry, your eyes water, and your body convulses with a force that feels biblical. The first heave is violent. The second is worse. By the third, your legs have buckled, and your spirit is hovering somewhere above your head, quietly begging for mercy. You've had bad days before. Fevers, heartbreak, moments of despair. But this is different. This is betrayal from within. You are not alone. Around you, the deck has transformed into a battlefield of retching and misery. Grown men groan like dying oxen. Someone is sobbing. Another is trying to vomit while still tying rope, and failing at both. The cook is hunched behind a barrel, clutching his stomach and cursing the sea with the fervor of a man who's been through this too many times to still believe in God. Even the captain, the one-eyed monument of fury, is doubled over near the mast, expelling his last meal with a kind of primal rage. His hat falls off. No one dares to comment. There is no dignity at sea, only bile. The smell is unbearable. A mix of vomit, stale beer, fish guts, and the kind of sweat that comes from absolute internal panic. The wind carries it in every direction, wrapping the ship in a cloud of collective defeat. Rats scurry away from puddles forming near boots and knees. The wood glistens with it. You wonder briefly if ships ever sink from pure shame. No one talks. There is no camaraderie here, no knowing glances or jokes to lighten the mood. This isn't the part of the story where people bond through hardship. This is the part where people suffer silently, hopelessly, convinced they are dying in the least heroic way imaginable. You try to stand, but the deck shifts again and your body rebels, bending you back toward the rail with a fresh wave of betrayal. What's left to come up is unclear, but your stomach is determined to try. There's no relief, no magic pill, no advice that helps. A sailor once told you to focus on the horizon. You tried. The horizon mocked you. Another suggested eating bread. You tried that too. It came back as paste. The truth is simple. Your body is not meant to be here. Not like this. On this floating torture device, rocked endlessly by the whim of an angry sea, and commanded by men who have stopped flinching at the sound of others retching. The ship keeps moving. It does not care. The sails remain taut. The waves keep slapping. Your body heaves and burns and shivers, but nothing stops. Time becomes meaningless, measured only in the distance between your last vomit and the next one. You lose track of meals. You forget what hunger feels like. You forget your own name and remember only that the sea is in control now. Eventually, the sickness dulls, not because it's over, but because you've emptied yourself of everything but the will to suffer. Your limbs tremble. Your eyes are sunken. You wipe your mouth on a sleeve that smells like death, and for a moment you are still. Then the ship dips again, and you are reminded that rock bottom at sea is just a temporary stop before the next wave. You haven't chewed anything with confidence in days, maybe weeks. At first, you thought it was just the hardtack, a medieval culinary prank that exists to test the structural limits of human teeth. But it's more than that now. Your gums are swollen. Your breath could start fires. One tooth, on the upper left side, throbs constantly, like it's trying to crawl out of your skull and escape the rot from within. You prod at it with your tongue and instantly regret it. It's loose. You are not. There is no brushing, no rinsing, no floss, no minty rinse to make you feel human again. There's only salted meat, gritty biscuits, and whatever bacteria the sea air has lovingly cultivated in your mouth, like a private garden. You've tried rinsing with beer. It doesn't help. It just coats your teeth in sour foam and regret. Someone once mentioned chewing herbs to keep their mouth clean. You haven't seen an herb in weeks. You saw something green once, clinging to the side of a barrel, but it blinked, and you left it alone. The pain is deep now, not sharp, not sudden, just constant. Like your jaw has become a slow drumbeat of decay, a reminder with every bite that you are falling apart from the inside out. You try not to chew on the left anymore. You shift all your food to the right side, gnawing awkwardly like a wounded animal, pretending the pain is manageable. It isn't. Your tooth is dying, and it's bringing your patience with it. You dream of apples. Juicy, crisp, cool apples, the kind that snap between your teeth and drip down your chin. You wake to toothache and scurvy. It starts in the gums, a subtle tenderness, like you've bruised your mouth in your sleep. Then comes the bleeding. At first, you think it's from a cut, but it happens again and again. When you spit, the phlegm is pink. When you smile, which is rare now, your teeth look like they're drowning in red. The others don't mention it. Not because they don't notice, but because they're dealing with their own rotting mouths. One man lost 3 teeth in a single night and used a nail to push the gums back down. He still talks with a whistle and smiles like a haunted painting. No one brushes. It's not that they don't care, it's that they can't. Hygiene is a distant fantasy, like fresh bread or a bed that doesn't move. Your mouth is a battlefield, and the enemy is winning with slow, methodical cruelty. You feel the rot creeping deeper into the roots, into your jaw, threatening to set up camp in your bloodstream. There's an abscess forming, hot, swollen, angry. You can feel the pressure building like a blister beneath your skin. You consider asking for help, but there is no doctor. There's a man with a knife and a bottle of something strong. That's as close as you'll get. At night, you clench your jaw in your sleep, grinding what teeth remain into smaller, more miserable versions of themselves. You wake with a headache and a metallic taste in your mouth. You swallow blood without thinking about it. You've stopped noticing when you do. And yet, the food keeps coming. More salted meat, more hard biscuits, more excuses for your mouth to fall apart. No fruit, no vegetables, no mercy. You try to drink more beer, hoping the alcohol might numb the pain. It doesn't. It just makes you dull and tired, and more aware that your body is breaking in slow, irreversible increments. You know that molar won't last the week. You feel it wobble when you press down. One sharp bite, and it'll be gone. Cracked or swallowed or spat out into the sea with a scream. You try not to think about what comes after. Infection, fever, rot. You used to smile without thinking. Now your mouth is a cage. And every day, the bars rust a little more. You hear them before you see them. Tiny claws clicking against damp wood, whiskers rustling sacks, teeth grinding through things you hoped were inedible. Rats, dozens of them, possibly hundreds. You tried to count once, just to see how bad it was, but somewhere around rat number 47, one stared you down like it knew your name, and you gave up. They are everywhere. In the food stores, in the sleeping quarters, in the rigging, in your boots. You've seen them skitter across the deck in broad daylight like they own the place, because they do. This is their ship. You're just the warm, mostly immobile cargo. They move with purpose, with confidence, like they've got rank. And if the captain were to keel over dead tomorrow, you suspect the rats wouldn't mourn. They'd just fight over who gets his hat. You tried once to chase one off with a length of rope. It stood its ground. You swear it raised an eyebrow. Another time, you caught one dragging a piece of hardtack twice its size toward a hole under the barrels. It moved like a trained thief, pivoted expertly around knots, then vanished into darkness. It knew the ship better than you did, still does. They chew through everything. Canvas, rope, sacks, shoes, hopes. One night, you woke to a sharp pain in your toe and saw a small set of eyes staring back at you. The rat didn't flee. It just blinked and walked away like your foot was disappointing. You bled for an hour and haven't slept soundly since. Some of the older sailors say they've made peace with them. Leave 'em be, and they'll leave you alone, they mutter as a rat steals the last bite of their dried meat. One man even feeds them crumbs on purpose. Says it's protection. Says it's respect. He's missing 2 fingers. No one asks questions anymore. You tried to protect your rations once by tying the bag to a rope and hanging it from the ceiling beam. The next morning, the bag was gone, the rope was chewed through, and a rat was sitting in your bowl like it was waiting for you to refill it. You haven't tried anything clever since. The worst part is, they're clean. Not clean in any real sense, but cleaner than you. You've watched them scurry down into the water barrels, splash around, then scamper back out to groom themselves in the sun. At least the rats bathe in your drinking water. You've stopped being surprised by their ingenuity. One night, the ship rocked hard in a storm, and the forward hold flooded. In the morning, a crewman opened the hatch and found 6 rats floating on a board like survivors of a shipwreck. They looked annoyed, but unharmed. Another time, someone saw one drag a piece of soap behind a barrel. No one knows what it planned to do with it. That rat is now considered the most sophisticated thing on board. But they're not just gross, they're dangerous. They bite, they carry disease. Plague is just one bad sneeze away, and no one on board is healthy enough to fight it. Your gums are already bleeding, your stomach's in rebellion, and your lungs wheeze every time the wind shifts. If the rats decide to go from thieving to conquest, you're not convinced the crew could stop them. Sometimes, when the ship is quiet, just the creak of the hull and the slap of the waves, you hear them moving beneath the boards. A low hum of motion, and teeth, and tails. It sounds organized, intentional, like they're planning something. You wonder, briefly, what happens when the food runs out, and you start to wonder if you'll be next. You try not to look down too closely at where you're meant to sleep. The floor of the lower deck is slick with brine and filth, the kind of wetness that's never clean, just the lingering consequence of too many storms, too many boots, and too many nights spent hoping the ship doesn't decide to come apart in the dark. You find a place between 2 crates and lower yourself slowly, carefully, trying not to disturb the puddle already forming beneath you. It doesn't matter. In minutes, your clothes are soaked through anyway, and you can feel the water seeping into your bones like it's trying to replace your blood. There is no bed, no mattress, no hammock. You have a damp cloak that smells like mildew and someone else's cough. You fold it in half and call it a pillow. The planks beneath you are warped and uneven, and one of them creaks every time your chest rises to breathe. You think about stuffing something under it to stop the noise, but decide you'd rather not discover what lives down there. Something probably has a nest. Around you, the others are already sprawled out, some snoring like dying bears, others muttering in their sleep, twitching, groaning, calling out names you don't recognize. A man to your left scratches at his skin so violently you hear it over the creaking timbers. A man to your right hasn't moved in hours, and you don't ask if he's asleep or gone. Either answer means you're not going to touch him. It's pitch black, a kind of darkness that feels physical, like it's pressing against your eyes. The only light comes from a lantern somewhere above deck, faint and flickering through the slats in the planks, casting long warped shadows that move with the sway of the ship. You stare at them until they start to look like hands. Something brushes against your leg. You freeze. Your first thought is rat. Your second is worse. You kick out gently and pray it was just a rope. You hear nothing. You feel nothing. But now you're fully awake, heart pounding, skin prickling, mouth dry. You shift onto your side, and the water follows you like a cold ghost. Sleep is optional. Nightmares are mandatory. You drift in and out, never fully resting. When you do manage to lose consciousness, your dreams are not dreams. They're hallucinations born of fever and hunger, of rocking waves and splintering wood. You dream of sinking, of drowning, of something climbing up through the floorboards and whispering in your ear. You wake, with your face pressed into the deck and your tongue sticking to your teeth. Your gums taste like metal. Someone above you coughs so hard they spit onto your sleeve. You pretend not to notice. You try to turn over. Something pulls at your shirt. It's stuck to the planks. You peel it free with a wet, tearing sound that makes your stomach turn. The smell down here is unbearable. Stale beer, unwashed bodies, piss, mold, and the faint sweetness of something decaying. You breathe through your mouth, but it doesn't help. The stink has weight. It settles into your lungs and dreams. At some point, you give up trying to sleep. You lie there, soaked and shivering, listening to the groans of men who've long since accepted that this is how you rest now. Not with comfort, but with compromise. The ship shifts again, and a puddle inches closer to your neck. You curl into yourself like it'll help. It won't. You think about dry grass, about warm blankets, about a bed that doesn't rock and whisper and creak like it's alive. But you're not on land. You're not in a bed. You're floating in a wooden coffin with strangers who would eat you if the rats left anything behind. And the worst part is, you'll be here again tomorrow. You've stopped counting the days, not because you don't care, but because numbers have lost their meaning out here. Time doesn't flow. It loops, it drags, it snarls itself into knots and laughs at your attempts to follow it. Morning looks like evening. Evening looks like the end. The sun rises and falls like it's mocking you. Too bright, too hot, too relentless. You know it's been weeks or months. Or maybe you just died at some point and no one bothered to tell you. Your sense of self is beginning to fray. You catch your reflection in the stagnant water pooled near the deck pump and don't recognize the face staring back. Sallow, sun-stained, eyes like smoke rings. You mouth a word to yourself, maybe your name, but it doesn't land. It floats off with the wind and joins the rest of what you've lost. You haven't laughed in days, haven't smiled without pain in your jaw. Your humor dried up somewhere between your last vomit and the last time you saw the stars. Someone starts singing. Not loud, not joyfully, just low and slow, like they're trying to summon something from below. It's a shanty, or it was once. Now it's a chant, cracked and broken and carried through teeth too tired to care. You hear the words, but can't place them. Maybe they're in another language. Maybe they're just nonsense. Either way, they sound like mourning. The singer is somewhere near the front of the ship. You don't go over there anymore. That part of the deck has become its own world, where the more unhinged crew members gather and whisper about signs in the waves. One claims he saw a ghost ship. Another says a mermaid spoke to him in his sleep and cursed his hands. You laughed the first time. You don't laugh now. Because last night, you looked out at the sea and thought you saw a city beneath the surface. Streets and spires and glowing windows. It was gone, in a blink. You haven't spoken much. No one has. Words are expensive now, and most of them are wasted on muttering or cursing or pleading with things no one can see. You said good morning to someone yesterday, and they flinched. You haven't tried again. Communication has devolved into nods, shrugs, and the occasional wide-eyed stare that says, "You feel it too, don't you?" Food arrives without warning, often inedible, always disappointing. The cook doesn't speak anymore. He just places the pot down in the middle of the deck like he's making an offering to the gods, then disappears below again. You eat without appetite, chew without tasting, swallow without thinking. Hunger's become something quieter now, a dull pressure instead of a scream. You've grown used to it, like the rats, like the damp. You think you see land. It's not the first time. Somewhere on the horizon, a jagged silhouette breaks the line between sea and sky. You stare until your eyes sting, until your breath catches, until you're certain you can see trees, buildings, movement. You call out. No one answers. You point. Someone glances, then shakes their head slowly and walks away. When you look back, the shape is gone. Maybe it was never there. Maybe it was hope, surfacing just long enough to drown you again. You start to dream during the day. You blink too long and find yourself back on solid earth, wrapped in a blanket that doesn't smell like mildew. You see faces you loved, rooms you forgot. You feel clean, warm, safe. Then a gull screams, or a rope snaps, or a crewmate vomits near your feet, and it all fades like smoke. This ship doesn't move anymore. It haunts. It circles the same patch of cursed water. It drifts through your mind, prying loose the memories you once relied on to stay sane. You no longer know which direction is home. You're not even sure it exists. You think you hear music from the waves. You don't lean over to listen. Not anymore. The shout goes up just before dawn. Land ho! It tears through the fog like a cannonball, jolting you from a sleep you didn't remember slipping into. Around you, men scramble to their feet, groaning, cursing, rubbing salt from their eyes. The deck tilts as bodies move toward the rail, pushing for a glimpse of the blurry smear on the horizon. Land, actual land. Dirt and trees and things that don't sway beneath your feet or try to kill you with mold. For a brief, stupid moment, you feel something close to relief. Then the captain appears and ruins everything. He's shouting orders already, voice cracking like a whip, eyes bloodshot and wild. Sails need adjusting. Weapons need checking. Armor, such as it is, needs strapping on. You stare down at your rusted, chipped blade, still wedged in the same soggy leather scabbard you've been pretending to maintain. You draw it out, and it makes a sound like a dying crow. There's more rust than steel. It's bent near the tip. One edge has a notch big enough to catch your thumb in. You're told to sharpen it. With what? The whetstones are gone. Lost, stolen, tossed overboard in a fight 2 ports back. Someone jokes about using your teeth. You laugh, but it's a hollow sound, the kind you make when you're halfway to understanding your own funeral. You're not a warrior. You're bait. You've had no training, no drills, no armor beyond a crusty gambeson and a dented helmet that fits like a soup bowl. Your shield, if you were lucky enough to get one, is made of thin wood wrapped in iron bands in someone else's dried blood. The captain shouts something about courage. The man next to you vomits again. The plan is simple. The fleet will land, and you will rush forward, screaming. Not because it's strategic, but because it's loud and confusing, and might make the enemy hesitate long enough for the real fighters to arrive. You are the noise, the chaos, the meat at the front of the grinder. The term cannon fodder hasn't been invented yet, but if it had, your face would be carved into the definition. You watch the shoreline creep closer. It's not welcoming. No beaches, no soft sand, just jagged rocks and high grass, and something moving in the tree line. You squint and see flashes of metal, shields maybe, spears, arrows. You ask if we're out of range. The sailor you ask just shrugs. Below deck, the air is thick with fear. Men tighten belts and mutter prayers, fumbling through rituals they barely remember. One writes something on a scrap of cloth and tucks it into his boot. Another sharpens a nail into a shiv and mutters that it's for himself, just in case, No one talks about victory, only survival or escape, or, failing that, a death fast enough not to notice. You are handed a second weapon, a short blade with no handle, just wrapped cloth. It looks like it was pulled from the ribs of a whale and forgotten in a fire. You try to imagine using it. Try to imagine killing with it. Try to imagine not dying before you even reach the shore. None of it feels plausible. The ship jerks as it slows, anchors dragging, ropes flying. You grip your weapon with wet, numb fingers. The shouts rise again. Brace. Ready. Move. The other ships are already lowering boats, and men are piling in, faces drawn, eyes wide. You're herded into yours with a shove. The sea rocks hard beneath you. The shore is close now. Too close. You hear the first scream before you hear the first arrow. And then you stop hearing anything at all. Everything happens too fast and too loud. Orders barked, boots thudding, ropes snapping taut, sails being hauled in with frantic hands that haven't stopped shaking since the first glimpse of land. You don't know where you're supposed to be, but you do know one thing for certain. If you stay still long enough, someone will yell at you. Or worse, notice you're not helping and decide to give you a job. So you grab the nearest coil of rope and pretend to know where it goes, dragging it across the deck like it might eventually form a plan on its own. You pass a pile of helmets, cracked, dented, some with dried blood already baked into the lining, and choose one that smells less like fear. It doesn't fit. None of them do. You force it down onto your head anyway, the edge cutting into your temple as you fasten the strap with fingers that feel like they belong to someone else. Every crew member around you is doing the same, pulling on gear, muttering to themselves, shoving crude weapons into cracked sheaths. One man prays. Another just vomits quietly over the side, wipes his mouth, and goes back to loading barrels like nothing happened. There is no training, no drills, just panic wrapped in urgency, soaked in sweat. The captain is shouting something incomprehensible from the stern, and everyone pretends to understand him. They nod, scatter, trip over each other to look busy. You see a pile of bolts being hauled to the mangonel, most of them rusted, one snapped clean in half. The rope for the winding mechanism has frayed badly. Someone ties it off anyway. You watch them winch it down, and can't help but notice the beam is splintering. You're told to help with the ammunition. You say yes before hearing what that actually means. Turns out it's dragging heavy, misshapen stones to the siege gear on deck. Stones that reek of old fish, because they've been soaking in bilge water for days. You grip one with both hands and nearly topple over when the ship lurches. Your feet slip in something slick. It's either oil, seawater, or vomit. You don't look. You just keep moving, slipping and sweating and trying not to cry. Armor is being passed out now, if it can be called that. A mismatched assortment of chainmail scraps, battered cuirasses, dented greaves. One man gets half a breastplate and wears it backwards. Another wraps chain around his arms like he's making some kind of iron scarf. There isn't enough to go around. There was never going to be. You get a leather vest with a gash down the middle. It might deflect a stern glance. The catapult finally fires once. It makes a sound like a groaning ox and flings the rock 10 feet before it crashes back onto the deck and rolls into a sailor's leg. He screams. No one checks on him. They're too busy reloading it with another projectile, this time a barrel filled with pitch that may or may not light. The man lighting it is missing 2 fingers and shaking hard enough to qualify as an earthquake. You stand well back. Someone nearby is singing again. The same half melody you heard days ago. This time, the words are clearer and somehow worse. A verse about bones, another about mothers waiting at shorelines. You press your hand to your stomach. You haven't eaten much, but what's in there wants out. No one trained for this, especially not you. This isn't glory. This isn't courage. This is chaos. Panicked, damp chaos with a side of projectile nausea. You are now part of a machine made of fear and desperation, and the only way to survive it is to keep moving, keep pretending you know what comes next, and hope you're not standing in the wrong place when the first real missile flies. The order comes down without warning, without ceremony, and definitely without a moment to say goodbye to your remaining good sense. You're boarding. That's the word they use. Prepare to board. As if it's just stepping onto a dock or walking into a tavern. In reality, it means leaping across a gap of open water onto a hostile vessel that very much does not want you there, while armed men try to kill you with metal, fire, fists, and fury. Romantic, right? Wrong. You line up near the edge of the ship, pressed shoulder to shoulder with other shaking, sweating, barely clothed disasters who somehow pass for warriors. Everyone's holding something sharp. Axes, swords, crude spears with rope handles, and everyone's muttering in their own little bubble of panic. The captain yells to wait for the command. Wait until you're close enough. Wait until the grapples catch. You nod, because that's what the others are doing, but your brain has long since stopped recording useful instructions. It's just trying to keep you upright. The enemy ship is drawing closer now, sails straining, wood groaning. You can see the men on board already. They're shouting too, waving weapons, banging them against shields and railings. One hurls something, a rock or a message, or maybe just rage, and it bounces harmlessly into the sea. But the point is made. They are ready. You are not. The grappling hooks go first. Big iron things with frayed ropes, flung through the air with an aim born not of skill but of desperation. They catch. Somehow, wood crunches, ropes tighten, and now the two ships are bound together in a reluctant embrace, groaning as they sway in the waves. That's when the screaming starts. The first man jumps without hesitation. He doesn't even make it halfway, slips on the rail, lands in the water, and vanishes beneath the hull like he was never there. No splash, no scream. Just gone. The second man clears the gap, lands hard on the enemy deck, and is immediately met with a spear to the gut. He collapses like a sack of wet flour. By the time you reach the rail, there's a bottleneck of fear, every man waiting for someone else to go first. And then you're shoved. Your feet leave the deck. For 1/6 second, you're airborne, weightless, a mistake in midair. And then your boots slam down onto unfamiliar wood. Your knees buckle, and your shoulder collides with something, or someone, that might have been an enemy, or a crewmate, or a hallucination. Doesn't matter. You're here now. Welcome to hell. Everything is noise. Wood creaking, men grunting, metal scraping, blood hitting the deck like spilled oil. There's no order, no tactics, just survival through violence. You swing your blade. You don't even know at who. Maybe no one. Maybe yourself. You duck. You fall. You scramble back up only to see a man on fire running past you, shrieking as flames consume what's left of his shirt. Another is pinned beneath a fallen mast, still alive and begging for someone to finish it. No one does. Smoke chokes the air. You don't know where it's coming from. Maybe a pitch pot. Maybe the ship itself is burning. Either way, your lungs sting and your eyes blur. You cough and wipe your face with a sleeve already soaked in something too warm to be seawater. You spot someone charging at you. You raise your weapon. They fall before they reach you, cut down by a man you don't recognize. You nod. He nods. You move on. This isn't glory. It's claustrophobia with blood and fire. You're pressed between bodies, ducking beneath wild swings, slipping in things you don't dare identify. Every sound feels like a threat. Every breath could be your last. You think about jumping back to your ship. Then you remember it's gone, drifting apart, too far now to leap. You're on this one, and you don't know how long it will float. The first arrow doesn't hit you. It lands near your foot, quivering in the deck with a thud that feels louder than it should. You blink at it. It's crude, black-feathered, streaked with something that might be tar or blood. It doesn't matter. What matters is the second one. That one catches the man to your right, in the neck. He gasps once, makes a sound like a popped wineskin, and goes down hard, his hand still gripping his axe as if he might stand back up. He won't. And just like that, everything unravels. Arrows fall in waves. Not elegant, not precise, just pure chaos hurled from above. They slice through sails, thud into masts, embed themselves in limbs and faces and anything stupid enough to still be standing. You press your back against the mast, trying to make your body small, trying to breathe through the rising reek of smoke and blood. One arrow lands so close to your head that you feel the air move. Another bounces off the rail and tumbles at your feet like a warning. Then comes the fire. At first it's just a hiss, a small whoosh, almost delicate. A pot of pitch explodes against the aft deck, and instantly the world is red. Flames lick up the side of the mast, hungry and fast, eating canvas and rope like they've been waiting for this chance. The heat rolls over you like a punch. Men scream and slap at themselves as fire catches in their clothes, their hair, their skin. You watch someone leap overboard with half his face still burning. He doesn't resurface. The catapults scream next, crude but effective. One hurls a massive stone that crashes through the starboard side of the enemy ship, sending splinters flying like shrapnel. The cheer it draws dies quickly when return. Fire smashes through your own bow, collapsing half the forecastle and pinning 2 men under what used to be the captain's quarters. Someone's yelling to put the fire out. Someone else is yelling to hold the line. A third voice just screams. You realize it's yours. You stagger toward the railing, ducking beneath a rope now fully ablaze, and nearly trip over a corpse. Not a body, a corpse. Blackened, curled in on itself, face frozen mid-scream. You don't look at it again. You're afraid you'll recognize it. The water below looks tempting, cool, final. But you've seen what waits in the sea. Broken planks, drowned men, blood spreading like ink. You've seen sharks follow ships like dogs now. You stay on the burning wood. You pretend it's safer. If you don't burn, you'll drown. The deck beneath you groans, ancient timbers cracking from both fire and stress. One of the ropes holding the sails snaps with a whip-like crack, sending a smoldering sheet of canvas fluttering down into the chaos. It lands on 2 men. They go down beneath it. Only one gets up, and when he does, he's screaming and swinging wildly, blade catching friend and foe alike. No one dares get close. You've lost your bearings. You don't know which side is winning. You don't know if there are still sides. The enemy crew looks just like yours now. Blackened, bloodied, wide-eyed with terror. You see one trying to pry a flaming plank off a trapped man. You see another hacking aimlessly at the ropes holding your ships together, trying to escape the shared inferno. Above you, arrows keep falling. Below you, the fire keeps climbing. The ship is dying. It knows it. You feel it in the tremble of the deck, in the way the mast leans, in the way the sails curl inward like they're praying. The sea sloshes higher with every lurch, black and greedy, smoke swirling above it like the breath of something ancient and angry. You cough once, twice, blood this time, and then the deck cracks beneath your feet. The sea's too calm. That's the first thing you notice. It's eerie, glass-like, as if it's holding its breath, as if even the water knows something stupid is about to happen. The ship creaks beneath your boots, sails full, hull steady. but the men around you are shifting like rats right before a lightning strike. You smell the fear, sharp and salty, laced with smoke and blood, and the kind of sweat that comes from accepting you're about to make contact with something very hard at an unforgivable speed. Then the call comes down from the quarterdeck, like doom shouted through a barrel. Ramming speed. You blink. That can't be right. Your ship is a cog. Fat-bottomed, lumbering, slow to turn, slow to stop, built to haul cargo, and maybe a few hopeful soldiers. It's not sleek. It's not pointed. It is not, under any architectural philosophy known to man, built for ramming. But here you are, hurtling forward anyway. The crew scrambles. Some brace. Some pray. A few mutter curses toward the captain's lineage. You just stand there gripping the railing like it's the only real thing left in the world. Ahead of you is the enemy ship, larger and far too close, its hull angled slightly off-center, which means the impact will be awkward, unpredictable, and probably fatal for anyone standing on either side. You think, surely we'll turn. Surely this is a bluff. It isn't. The enemy doesn't move. Neither do you. The sea waits. And then you hit. The sound is impossible to describe. Not a crash, not a crack, more like an explosion of trees collapsing underwater, followed by the high-pitched shriek of everything you trust giving up at once. The entire ship jumps beneath your feet. Men are thrown like dice across the deck. Your knees buckle. Your ribs grind against each other. You fall, and when you land, the breath is driven out of your lungs like a kicked bellows. Your spine is now a question mark. Wood splinters fly like arrows, stabbing through arms and cheeks and thighs. The prow of your ship caves inward like paper against the enemy hull, sending shards through your own bow. You hear someone screaming. It might be you. It might be the ship itself. Then the chain reaction begins. The mast tilts, then settles, still standing, but now with a wobble that says, not for long. The rigging snaps in places, slapping the air with ropes like a dying marionette. You hear the crack of ribs. Real ones. A man beside you is on all fours, spitting blood into the deck planks. Another is crawling, one leg bent wrong, muttering a child's prayer under his breath. No one swings a sword yet. No one has the breath. Ramming wasn't a battle tactic. It was a gamble, a scream in the face of strategy, a last desperate hope that maybe breaking things would make everything simpler. It hasn't. You stumble upright, staggering past a broken barrel and the remains of what used to be the port railing. The two ships are now entangled, groaning against each other like they're arguing in slow motion. Somewhere, someone throws a grappling hook. Someone else tries to leap the gap with a torch. That's when the real fighting starts. Turns out wood-on-wood combat is like medieval demolition derby, with swords. Men swing wildly from listing decks. Planks give way underfoot. The lines between ships blur. You're not even sure which one you're standing on anymore. You think, if I die here, does it count as drowning or impalement? No one answers. Too busy bleeding. And the worst part is, the captain looks thrilled. There's no grace in falling overboard. It's not cinematic. It doesn't happen in slow motion with a dramatic scream or a noble dive. It's sudden, stupid, and almost always someone else's fault. One moment you're staggering across the deck, ducking a swinging sword or trying not to trip over a severed rope. The next, your foot slips, your balance lurches, and your entire world tips sideways into cold, churning oblivion. The sea doesn't catch you. It consumes you. You hit the water hard, like pavement, not a cushion, and then you're under, surrounded by instant darkness and bubbles and the distant crackle of flame above. It's colder than you imagined. colder than anything has a right to be. The shock of it hits your chest like a punch. You try to inhale, but there's only water, thick and salty and unforgiving. Your lungs spasm. Panic blooms. You kick, claw, flail. None of it helps. The armor is a curse you can feel in real time, dragging you down inch by inch. What was once a layer of protection is now dead weight, soaking up seawater like a stone sponge. Your sword's gone, dropped the moment you hit. Your limbs are slow, heavy. Your mind screams at your body to rise, but your body doesn't listen. It sinks. Can't swim? That's unfortunate. Can swim? That's adorable. It doesn't matter. The sea doesn't care how well you trained in some village pond when you were 8. Your technique doesn't matter. Your willpower doesn't matter. What matters is that every second below the surface robs you of heat, strength, air, and hope in equal measure. Above, you hear the muffled chaos of battle. Distant yells, the crack of wood, the hiss of something burning. No one notices you're gone. No one calls your name. The fight goes on, the ship sails on, and you drift. Alone, flailing in armor that fits tighter with every breath you don't get. You reach the surface once, barely. Your head breaks through the waves, and for a glorious half-second, you gulp in air so sweet it almost makes you sob. You see the ship, impossibly far, and a figure on the rail tossing a rope, but not for you. Then a wave slams into your face, and you go under again, coughing and sputtering as salt water fills your nose and eyes and ears. Everything burns. You start to understand what drowning really is. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's the slow realization that no one is coming, that your body is no longer yours, that the sea wants you more than the land ever did. Your limbs stop fighting. Your vision narrows. Somewhere in the distance, you hear singing again, the same cursed melody from the ship, only now it's quieter, deeper, as if the ocean is humming along. You try one last time to kick upward, to break free, but the armor says no. It pulls you gently down, like a jealous ghost refusing to let go. Your hand reaches for light that isn't there. Your lungs give up. The panic fades. The sea accepts all, dead or alive. When they find you, if they find you, you'll be bloated and unrecognizable, armor rusted to your bones, hair tangled like seaweed. They'll shake their heads, maybe mutter a prayer, maybe just strip what's left and toss you back. Either way, you'll be part of the water now. You'll drift where the current takes you, through wreckage, through memories, through bones older than time. And the next time someone stumbles on that deck, slips at the wrong moment, and tumbles into the same water, you'll be waiting. Like the sea always is. The water's gone warm. That's the first thing you notice. Warm, thick, and wrong. It clings to your skin like oil, coats your mouth when you gasp for air, burns your nostrils when you inhale too fast. You don't remember when you fell in. You don't remember if you jumped or were shoved or if the deck simply gave out beneath you like a trapdoor into hell. All you know now is the sea is no longer blue. It's red. There's blood in the water. A lot of it. Yours, probably. You can't tell where it's coming from. There's a gash on your thigh, a deeper one across your arm, and something in your side that feels like a splintered rib trying to make a break for it. You don't feel pain so much as pressure, a throbbing heaviness, a warning that your insides are leaking out, drop by drop, into the same ocean that just tried to drown you. Something brushes your leg. Not cloth, not rope, not the familiar slap of floating debris. This is solid, smooth, and shaped like consequence. You don't look. You can't. You're not ready to know whose it was. Maybe you knew them. Maybe they shared a crust of bread with you 2 days ago, or cursed beside you as the sails tore. Doesn't matter now. They're pieces. There's no up or down anymore. The sky is somewhere overhead, bright and merciless, but the horizon won't hold still. The wreckage bobs in and out of view. Sails burning, hulls splintering, bodies rising and sinking like dead stars. You float between it all, treading water with one arm, bleeding from the other, surrounded by the remains of the people who were supposed to get you home. You try to swim. It's pathetic. Your limbs are numb, leaden, reluctant. Every stroke pulls against resistance, not just the weight of your clothes, but the drag of trauma in your bones. You kick weakly toward a floating barrel, something, anything, to cling to. But it spins away with the next wave, slick with blood and oil and some other fluid you don't want to name. You used to fear drowning. Now you beg for it. The salt stings your eyes and your cuts. You can't tell which is worse. A scream echoes nearby, sharp and short, then silence. You twist to look and catch a glimpse of something gray moving just beneath the surface. It's fast. It disappears. You blink and it's gone. Was it a fin? Driftwood? Your brain, finally snapping in half? You don't know. You don't ask. You keep bleeding. You keep floating. You keep thinking that maybe this is the end. But it doesn't come. Not quickly, not mercifully. The sea wants you to suffer for a while first. It wants to wring the hope out of you, like salt from a wet rag. One drop at a time. Another body floats by. No head. Just a torso, turning gently with the current, arms stretched wide like it's welcoming you to a place no one returns from. You flinch and nearly slip beneath the surface again. Water fills your mouth. You cough, sputter, cling to a chunk of timber that used to be part of a railing. It creaks. You don't care. The sky darkens slightly. Not nightfall, just smoke. Fire still clings to parts of the wreckage, painting the waves orange and black. The sun peers through like it's watching a play. You close your eyes and try to forget how it felt when the deck split open beneath you. And still, you float. You don't know how long you've been here. An hour, a day, a lifetime of minutes. Time has dissolved into salt and blood and bobbing silence. The world is only the sea now. And the sea is hungry. You never expected it to be graceful, but you thought, somewhere, somehow, it would be more organized. All those paintings you saw, those stories you heard, they lied to you. Combat, real combat, isn't two men dancing with swords in the light of honor. It's not clean, it's not noble. It's not fair. It's hell in tight quarters, with too many limbs and too little space. The moment you step onto the enemy deck, or what's left of it, you're swallowed by noise and motion. The floor beneath you tilts with every shift of the waves. Sails burn. Smoke curls through the air like a living thing, and then a man charges at you screaming, teeth bared, holding what looks like half a broken oar wrapped in iron wire. You raise your sword. Too slow. The oar connects with your shoulder, slamming into flesh and bone like a hammer through rotten wood. You stumble backward, lose your footing on something wet and slippery, possibly blood, possibly something worse, and land hard against a beam. Your head rings. The sky spins. But there's no time to catch your breath, because the man is already lunging again. You swing wildly. You miss. He doesn't. Something sharp finds your side. It's not a blade. No metal edge that clean. It's a splintered nail tied to a stick with a piece of gut. You feel it tear through your shirt and skin like fire. The wound isn't deep, but it's real, and your body registers it in full color, pain, heat, panic. You scream, not because you're dying, but because it's the only sound you can make that isn't a whimper. You grab a shield off the ground. It's not yours. It might be a door, and shove it into your attacker's chest. He goes down in a heap, groaning. You don't finish him. You can't. Someone else slams into your side, dragging you into another corner of the deck, and suddenly your sword is gone again. Hands are everywhere. Boots kick your shins. A headbutt crashes into your nose, and for a moment, the world whites out. When it comes back, you're face to face with another fighter, bare-chested, blood-smeared, holding a broken bottle. That's it. No armor, no tactics, just hate and luck. You punch him before he punches you. It's not a good punch. It's clumsy, desperate, your hand half closing around your own fingers. But it lands. He falls. You fall with him. You both hit the deck in a tangled heap of curses and exhaustion. You roll away just in time to avoid a falling body. Someone else, someone you don't know, hit in the neck with a thrown axe. He twitches once, then nothing. You don't look long. You crawl instead, dragging yourself across the deck toward a sword that looks whole enough to use. You pick it up and turn just as someone else charges. You swing low. You don't aim. You connect. The blade bites into a thigh, and the man howls, collapsing. You try to pull the sword free, but it's stuck. You leave it behind and run, or limp. You're not sure which anymore. This is not choreography. This is chaos. There's no rhythm, no pattern, just screams and smoke and steel and wood, and the constant threat of death from every angle. You see someone swinging a rope like a flail. Another bites a man's ear off. One pair fights with fists because they've both lost their weapons and the will to care. You don't feel brave. You don't feel strong. You feel like meat trying not to become soup. You duck behind a barrel. Breathe. Listen. Another scream. A splash. Silence. Then footsteps. You raise your head, and it starts all over again. The smoke arrives before the fire. At first, it's a whisper, curling up from the base of the mast where someone, maybe yours, maybe theirs, has tossed a pot of something that sizzles like a curse. You see the black line of its snake along the deck, rising slow, thick, and lazy, like it's figuring out the best way to kill you. Then it makes up its mind. Within moments, it's everywhere, crawling into your nose, your mouth, your ears, filling your throat with a tarred, choking heat that claws down into your chest and blooms like poison. You stagger backward, coughing hard enough to double over, and when you try to inhale again, nothing happens. Just a sharp, brittle wheeze that tells you your lungs are already giving up. You try to scream, warn someone, curse someone, beg someone, but your throat doesn't work anymore. The smoke has sealed it shut like wax. All that comes out is a hoarse croak that gets swallowed instantly by the crackling of fire and the groaning of timbers. You raise your hand to wave, but no one's looking. Everyone's blind. Your eyes sting. Not a sting, really. More like your face is dissolving from the inside out. You blink rapidly, tears streaming down your cheeks, but it doesn't help. You still can't see the deck, or the people on it, or where the next blow might come from. You can barely see your own fingers, stretched out in front of you, shaking like they belong to someone else. You take a step forward and trip over something. Not a rope, not a weapon. A body, heavy, unmoving, warm. You don't wait to find out whose. There's shouting nearby, shapes in the fog of flame, some calling orders, some screaming for help, most just making sound for the sake of not dying quietly. You feel the heat getting worse, which seems impossible, But here it is, growing, pressing against your skin like a second layer of flesh that wants to peel the first one off. Something behind you erupts with a pop and a roar, and the air goes liquid with heat. Your lungs quit before your sword arm does. You still have your weapon, or something like it. You're gripping it so tight your fingers have locked. You swing at the shadows, aimless, wild, just in case someone's there. You hit nothing. Or maybe something. It's hard to tell the difference. All you can hear is your heart thudding in your ears and the snap of flames climbing the rigging. You drop to one knee, instinct or exhaustion, and try to suck in air lower to the deck. It works, barely. A small, sharp mouthful of oxygen that smells like pitch and ash and the end of things. You hold it as long as you can before exhaling a cough that tastes like coins and iron. Something burns nearby. Maybe the sails, maybe someone's hair, and you hear the wood starting to scream. The deck shifts suddenly, a lurch that nearly sends you flat. Somewhere below, the hull is buckling. You can hear it now. The timbers groaning, like they're begging for mercy. Someone near you falls, their body thudding against the boards. You crawl forward, hands slapping blindly, eyes streaming, breath gone. You don't know where you're going. You just want to find air. And it doesn't exist anymore. The smoke has won. It owns the deck. It owns your throat. It owns your eyes, your ears, your memory. Somewhere in the fog, men are still fighting, still swinging weapons they can't aim, still bleeding from wounds they can't see. Somewhere, someone is still hoping for rescue. But not you. You stop crawling and let the darkness come down with the smoke. You wake up gagged, bound, and concussed, which is technically better than dead. The ropes bite into your wrists. Your knees are locked together with something that might be a belt, and your face is pressed into the rough planks of a floor that smells like mold, rot, and human suffering. You open your eyes just enough to glimpse a boot, then another, then blood, dry in some places, fresh in others. Most of it isn't yours. Some of it might be. You're past caring. The room rocks gently. You're still at sea. Or maybe just floating in someone's idea of mercy. You've been taken prisoner. Congratulations. It's not glamorous. There's no cage, no speech, no brooding warlord admiring your resilience. There's just pain, darkness, and the distinct feeling that you've just been upgraded from target to currency. You don't get food, not at first. Water comes eventually, dribbled into your mouth from a crusted ladle that tastes like copper and goat. You swallow because the body still wants to live, even if your mind has politely excused itself from this whole situation. The ship is quieter now. The fighting's over. That means your side lost. They strip you of everything. Armor, boots, dignity, and that one lucky trinket you kept tucked in your belt for moments exactly like this. They search your mouth for gold teeth. You don't have any. One of them laughs and slaps your face anyway, like it's a game and you're losing spectacularly. The others argue in a language you almost recognize, but not enough to help you. They keep glancing at you and using the same word over and over. You don't know what it means, but it's probably not friend. Time loses shape down here. There's no sun, no moon, just damp, the occasional rat, and the groan of a hull that wants to break. Your wounds fester quietly. You can feel the fever behind your eyes, the swelling in your joints, the slow leak of something unpleasant from your ribs. One man in the corner coughs for hours, and then stops permanently. They drag him out by the ankles. You envy him for a second. Just a second. You try to bargain once. Raspy words, broken logic, something about ransom. They hit you so hard, you don't try again. You realize then that talking won't save you. Nothing will. Unless you're valuable. And you, stripped, filthy, wheezing in a puddle of your own blood and seawater, are not valuable. Still, if you're lucky, and that word doesn't mean much anymore, they'll ransom you. Sell you back to whatever lord or merchant or semi-interested party might remember your name. The price will be insultingly low. They'll laugh when it's paid. And when you finally return home, sick, limping, and half mad, they'll wonder why you're not more grateful. More likely, though, they'll just keep you. Put you to work in the bilge, chained to an oar, rowing through a haze of hunger and muscle death, until your arms fall off, or your heart does. Or maybe they'll throw you in with the other broken men and make a game of watching you fight for crusts. Maybe you'll win. Maybe you won't. Or maybe they'll get bored and use you for practice. Torture isn't art out here. It's something between entertainment and habit. Fingers, knees, teeth. Everyone breaks eventually. You've already begun. You just haven't admitted it yet. At least you're not still on fire. That thought helps in a strange way. You remember the flames, the screaming, the ship cracking in half like a cursed walnut. You remember thinking that dying then, quick, noisy, in a blaze, might be better. Now you know the truth. Fire is fast. This is slow. And slow always hurts more. It starts with a sound you can't quite name. Not a crack, not a groan. More like the ship, sighing in defeat. You feel it before you hear it, through the soles of your feet, a deep, wet shudder that ripples up the planks and into your bones. Then comes the shouting. Not orders, not strategy, just noise. Panic in its rawest form. Someone yells that the hull's breached. Another yells back, asking where. No one answers. Water doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't knock. It forces its way in, all at once, an invisible fist through old wood, flooding the lower deck in seconds. You hear it before you see it. Slapping, surging, sucking away hope, 1 gallon at a time. By the time someone throws open the hatch, it's already waist deep and climbing. Barrels bob like toys. Rats claw over each other, trying to reach the stairs. You do what everyone does. You freeze. Then you move, but only because the man beside you shoves past, screaming, soaked to the ribs. You follow instinct more than reason. Up, toward the deck, toward air. But air won't save you. Air just lets you see it happen. The sea is winning. The ship lists violently, starboard side dipping so low that one of the lower sails slaps the surface like a drowning flag. Men spill across the deck, grabbing at anything solid, rigging, barrels, each other. The captain is screaming commands, but no one's listening. It might be the smoke, or the tilt, or the sound of rushing water growing louder with every heartbeat, but his voice doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't matter anymore. There are no lifeboats, just wood and prayers. You see one man jump, straight into the sea, armor and all. No scream, no splash, just a blur of movement, and then he's gone, swallowed like a secret. Another tries to climb the mast. Why, you'll never know, and falls before he makes it halfway. His skull cracks against the rail, a sound so final it silences the men around him for one brief, terrible second. You grab a length of rope and tie it around your wrist. Why? Because it feels like something you should do, like it might keep you afloat, or tether you to something that isn't death. A part of the ship breaks off with a moan and crashes into the sea, dragging 2 men with it. One of them screams for his mother. The other doesn't make a sound. Water pours in through the seams, through the deck, through gaps that didn't exist an hour ago. The ship is no longer a vessel, it's a sieve. The stairs behind you vanish beneath the flood. You step back just in time. your boots now soaked through, sloshing with each terrified shuffle. Someone prays, loudly. They say a saint's name you've never heard before, as if novelty might help. Another man tries to plug the breach below with sacks of grain. You want to laugh, or cry. You don't do either. The deck tilts again, sharper this time. You're thrown sideways, slammed into the railing with enough force to rattle your teeth. You taste blood. You don't know whose. The sky spins. The sea lunges. You grip the railing until your fingers ache, until your knuckles go white, until it no longer matters what you're holding because the ship beneath you is giving up. It groans one last time. Long, low, resigned. Then it starts to go under. You close your eyes, not to pray, not to hope, just so you don't see the end coming. The first 10 seconds aren't the worst. Those are just cold. A kind of cold your bones haven't met before, sharp and immediate, like the sea has teeth and you just landed on its tongue. You hit the water like a stone, breath ripped from your lungs, nerves lit on fire, muscles seizing as if every part of you just agreed to stop cooperating at once. You flail instinctively, sucking in air and water and whatever else the ocean offers. Your boots fill fast. Your hands go stiff. You latch onto the nearest piece of driftwood like it's holy. It is not. It's just wood. Slick, splintering, already sinking a little under your weight. But it floats, and right now, that makes it your god. You don't scream. You can't. Your body is too busy deciding whether to shiver or die. It tries both. The shivering comes first. Violent, desperate, all-consuming. Your teeth chatter so hard you're sure they'll crack. Your fingers curl and refuse to uncurl. Your legs are somewhere beneath you, but they might as well belong to someone else. The water is around 40 degrees. Doesn't sound so bad until you realize that number is the difference between being uncomfortable and being a corpse. You try to kick. You barely move. The driftwood bobs and threatens to slip away, but you hold tighter, your arms locked around it like a lover. You think of fire. You think of beds. You think of nothing but warmth. It doesn't help. Your mind starts to drift, just like your body, both carried by a current that has no destination and no interest in your survival. The sky above is gray and wide, and absolutely indifferent. Time stops behaving like time. Minutes feel like hours. Hours feel like eternity. And your thoughts come slower, fuzzier, wrapped in frost. You wonder if anyone else is out here. You think you hear someone nearby, splashing, sobbing, praying, but you can't turn to look. Your neck is stiff. Your jaw won't open. You're not sure if your eyelids are freezing shut or just too exhausted to blink. Your blood moves like syrup, slower, then slower again. You feel it pull back from your fingers, your toes, your ears, retreating into your core, abandoning the outskirts. It's trying to save your heart, and it doesn't care what dies in the process. You think you can hold out, that help might come. A ship maybe, a hand in the dark, but help doesn't come. The world has already decided you're done. You just haven't caught up to the decision. You start to feel warm. That's how you know it's over. The warmth is a lie, a final trick your body plays to soften the goodbye. You stop shaking. Your grip loosens. Your breath comes in soft, shallow sips. You feel peaceful, which should terrify you, but doesn't. You're too far gone for fear, too cold for regret. You now understand why sailors don't retire. They don't make it long enough to. They burn out, fall overboard, vanish into storms, or freeze like statues in seas just like this. You're joining a long tradition of forgotten men, nameless and blue-lipped, drifting until something hungry finds you, or the sea gets bored and swallows you whole. You blink slowly, once, twice, Then nothing. The driftwood slips away. Or maybe you do. Either way, you stop floating. You hear it before you see it. A groan of wood against water, distant shouts, the flap of sails in the wind like some forgotten song. You lift your head, barely. Your neck protests. Your eyes sting. Everything feels too bright, too loud, too far away. But there it is, cutting through the mist like a cruel hope. A ship. You try to shout, but your throat is nothing but salt and silence. The noise that comes out is a croak that gets lost in the wind. You raise an arm instead, half submerged, trembling. Your fingers barely lift above the waterline. You cling to what remains of your driftwood and try not to let go of the only thing keeping your ribs from greeting the ocean floor. They see you. Someone's on the deck, pointing. Others gather. You're visible. You are undeniable. A living man in a dead sea. This is it. Rescue. It has to be. You tell yourself this, with what remains of your mind. You picture dry socks, bread, a blanket, maybe a bucket to throw up in. Even the pain waiting for you in a surgeon's tent sounds heavenly, compared to the quiet numbness tightening around your chest. The ship draws closer, enough to see the shape of its hull, its lines, its sails, but not close enough to help. You squint through tears and sweat and sea spray, trying to make out the banner flapping above the mast. It's faded, unfamiliar. Could be your side, could be theirs, could be neither, could be worse. There's a man at the rail now, watching you like you're something curious. He cups his hands and shouts something. You can't hear it. You try to answer, but your voice is gone again, buried somewhere in your lungs along with the last of the warmth. You wave instead, frantic, feeble. He says something else, looks over his shoulder. Then he waves back. Not beckoning, not calling for help, just a slow, casual wave. The kind people give from docks to strangers they'll never see again. They wave. You sink. The ship never slows, never turns, never drops anchor or a rope or a ladder or a single ounce of humanity. Maybe they don't have space. Maybe they've seen too many like you and know how it ends. Maybe they're not rescuers at all, just scavengers in prettier clothes. Or maybe they're your own men and they've been ordered to save only the officers, the knights, the ones with names someone might miss. You they won't miss. The water pulls at your legs harder now, more persistent. Your arms ache from clutching the driftwood. Your head dips under once, then again, and each time it's harder to fight the weight. Not the water's weight, your own. Your soaked rags, your broken body, your useless hope. You watch the ship shrink into the horizon, taking your last chance with it. The sea is still. The sun mocks you. You stop waving. There's no drama left in your limbs, no final scream, no poetic farewell, just a slow slide downward into silence, like a curtain closing on the world's least interesting tragedy. You were seen, and it made no difference. No one comes looking for you. Not a soul. You don't have a brother who pulls strings with the Admiralty or a lover lighting candles in a chapel. You were crew. Not important. Not noble. Just another set of hands and lungs and muscle thrown at a war no one will remember by next season. You were never supposed to last this long. And now you won't. When the sea finally pulls you under, it's not dramatic. There's no swell of music, no final gasp for air, no moment of grace or reflection. You just sink, slow at first, then faster. The water wraps around your body like a wet shroud. The last air slips from your lungs, your mouth opens without meaning to, and everything goes quiet in a way that feels permanent. You don't fight. There's no point. Your body drifts downward, limbs slack, face pale, eyes open but blind. The surface grows distant, unreachable, Sunlight fades into green, then into black. The silence deepens. You pass a jellyfish. It doesn't notice you. A shoal of fish changes course and scatters. Not in fear, just as a reflex. You're nothing to them. You are nothing to anyone now. There is no burial, no priest, no flag folded neatly over your chest, no dirt dropped in solemn rhythm, no eulogy, no mention in a roster. No one carves your name into stone or tells your story to a crowded room. You aren't even listed as missing, just assumed lost. A line item, a statistic. You are not mourned. You are not remembered. The ship you served on is already sinking in someone else's mind. By the time the next battle is fought, your name will have been scraped off the crew manifest and replaced by another unlucky soul whose fate is already scribbled in salt. There is no inheritance. No heirloom passed down. You carried nothing worth passing. The sea doesn't care who you were. Not your first fight, not your worst wound, not the thing you whispered to yourself to keep from screaming in the night. It doesn't hold memories. It holds bones. And you are now one of them. Somewhere, far above, gulls circle a debris field. Somewhere, on a distant coast, a merchant complains about a delayed shipment, and a captain lies about why half his men didn't return. Somewhere, someone laughs and drinks and doesn't know. They just stepped into your bunk for the next voyage. And somewhere else, deeper still, something cold and patient picks clean what remains of your face. Your legacy? Fish food. No grave, no marker. Just a slow return to elements you never meant to join. Your ribs collapse inward, your skin loosens and slows. You rot in silence, while the world continues its noisy, indifferent spin. Eventually, even the fish lose interest. You become silt and salt and silence. And then, nothing. Glory has good press. It looks handsome in paintings, shining and loud, always backlit by a halo of sunlight and held together by words like valor and honor. The kind of thing that makes schoolboys sit up straight and men with swords puff out their chests. You thought there'd be more of it, that maybe, in the roar of battle or the silence after, you'd feel something like purpose swelling inside your ribs, a righteous warmth, a sense of having done something worth remembering. Instead, you felt splinters and bile and fear that never quite stopped chewing the back of your throat. There were no speeches, just grunts and orders barked over the wind. No gallant charges, no soaring horns, just the thud of feet on soaked wood, the clatter of ill-fitting armor, the scream of someone slipping before anything even started. You tell yourself you were brave, but the truth is, you were afraid the entire time. Everyone was. They just hid it behind curses and bad jokes and the kind of laughter that sounds like begging. Brotherhood is another myth. You didn't fight beside friends. You fought beside strangers who stole from you, spat on your boots, and forgot your name the minute you stopped moving. There were no comrades, only proximity. You stood next to the same lice-ridden men day after day, and still couldn't trust them not to throw you overboard if the stew ran low. The only time anyone touched your shoulder was to push past you for a better spot in the food line or to use your back as a rest while aiming a bow. The food, when it came, tasted like apathy. Wet hardtack, salt meat, so old it cracked when bitten, beer so weak it fermented sideways in your gut. Every mouthful was a gamble, not for taste but survival. Your teeth rotted as you chewed, your stomach rebelled with every swallow, and by week 2, your dreams were made entirely of bread that wasn't trying to kill you. There's no honor in seasickness. No dignity in crapping through a hole in a plank while waves slap your exposed backside. No song in being stabbed with a rusted fishhook tied to a stick. The stories don't mention how many men fell off the ship before a blade was ever drawn. They skip the part where your leg gets crushed by a barrel and no one helps because they're too busy saving their own skin. And when the fighting actually begins, glory exits the scene entirely. It doesn't stick around for the noise, the mess, the chaos of a dozen screams folding over each other. It doesn't watch you slip in blood or hear you cry out for your mother as you choke on smoke. No one writes verses about the guy who got an arrow through the throat before he ever touched the enemy deck. No one sings songs about the guy who died in the first 5 minutes. Glory is a lie you tell boys, so they don't ask why they're being handed blades instead of bread. It's the polished armor on the corpse, not the rot beneath. The banner on the mast, not the man tied to it. It's what they talk about when they don't want to talk about the nightmares, the disease, the silence that follows a scream. You went to sea thinking glory would carry you home, but it didn't even bother showing up. You're awake. For real this time. No salt on your tongue, no sway beneath your spine, no splintered wood in your teeth, just sheets, soft ones. A mattress thick enough to forget about bones, a pillow that doesn't smell like mildew, and the blessed aching silence of nothing on fire. You turn your head and see a ceiling, flat, clean, not leaking. You're home. The lights are dim. Somewhere, a refrigerator hums. A sound so ordinary, it could make you cry. You flex your fingers. No ropes, no rot, no blood. You move your legs and they obey without splashing. You inhale, and the air is crisp, bland, sterile. There's no smoke in it, no tar, no sweat clinging to every breath like a curse. You exhale and let your lungs believe in peace. There's a bathroom down the hall, a place where water comes from a tap instead of the sky, a toilet, an actual seat. You could cry again, just for the memory of not hanging over a hole in the dark while the sea made rude suggestions beneath you. You could run a bath, hot, with soap, and no risk of fungal infection eating your skin before sunrise. Your teeth are fine, mostly. You brush them twice a day. Maybe not perfectly, but at least you have a toothbrush instead of salted despair and wishes. There's food in the kitchen that hasn't been salted into oblivion or gnawed by rats. No one will hand you a wormy biscuit and call it supper. You have choices. A fridge full of refrigerated, unmurderous choices. You turn your head again and see your phone on the nightstand. Charged, dry, intact. A tiny slab of light and distraction that didn't exist back in the place you just came from. The place with the rusted swords and the screaming and the warmth that always meant fire. You remember that place now like a dream filtered through blood and smoke, but your body still believes it was real. It still aches with phantom bruises from the boards, still flinches at the imagined scrape of a rope across your throat. Your stomach twists for no reason, trained by hardtack trauma and memories of mystery meat that never quite qualified as meat. Your mind flickers, once, just once, to the moment you thought you were saved, when a ship waved and kept sailing. You survived this story. Medieval sailors didn't. They didn't have soft sheets or tap water or antibiotics or showers. They didn't have a phone to Google what is scurvy or a doctor who wouldn't prescribe bloodletting as a cure for headaches. They didn't have insulation. They didn't have socks that stayed dry. They didn't have names people remembered. You do. You have a full name, a bed, 4 walls, heating, plumbing, and 1,000 tiny luxuries you stopped noticing until you spent 30 chapters, sinking, screaming, and rotting your way through the worst job history has to offer. You never thought to thank your pillows before. You do now. Maybe you sleep a little longer tonight. Maybe you walk barefoot on the warm floor and whisper something to the ceiling. Something like thank you or never again. Maybe you open the fridge and marvel at how quiet everything is. The modern world owes you an apology. This is it.